not, you know, let out its troops, which, you know, came out in overwhelming numbers. Those types of maneuvers weren't really needed during the Covenant War. But with humanity having acquired significant foreigner technology and the Covenant collapsing, with the Covenant collapsing,
out of the airlocks. You'll have to prime the launch for ignition.
The Sangheili now sort of need to use this equipment designed for assault or siege type roles.
Did I miss orbiting a Forerunner planet at some point?
One thing at a time.
It's also the most accessible armor in the post-war era. So the armor itself isn't going to be used explicitly in assault roles. The forward onto Dawn, the play space of the entire ship really, or actually the model of the aft section of the ship, is actually 3 times bigger than its canonical size. This was done for gameplay reasons. Yeah, it was mainly done for gameplay reasons. Jeez. Jeez, my dog is barking like crazy. He's bothering the hell out of me. I don't know if you guys can hear him. Anyway, though, so obviously you can just sort of imagine that the play area we're in right now is sort of, you know, deflated down, you know, 3 times less its size right now. The problem with that, though, normally there wouldn't be a problem with that, but it does in fact create a problem, because with the inflated size of the ship, the Hyperion missiles were designed with the inflated ship in mind. So when you deflate the ship to its canonical size, the Hyperion missiles still stay the same size. The Hyperion missiles are incredibly large, compared to a frigate at least.
There's the launch station. Launch initiated.
Despite the CRS-class light cruisers here being incredibly small, you're still able to contend with larger UNSC ships and gut them. It's the same for most Covenant ships, despite their small size.
Covenant weren't the ones scanning us.
I don't really need to really say much about this part right here.
Now, can we worry about the giant metal planet?
Obviously, the planet itself, possibly the didact initiating the scan, maybe.
We've got to hurry. The second we cross the dome's event horizon,
Detected that the Master Chief, that a reclaimer was in fact on board the ship, and is now opening. We saw those CRS-class light cruisers get sucked into Requiem due to the gravity well. That's not the entire Covenant fleet. As we see in the first Halo 4 terminal, a large portion of the fleet was just arriving back at Requiem from a supply run. And the Forward Unto Dawn showed up at Requiem. The majority of the Covenant fleet is behind us.
Just keep your point at that vehicle bay.
fighting these grunts. The escape pods are actually have full 3D models with design functionality. You can barely see them sort of get away. The untrained eye might not be able to catch what the escape pods actually look like as they're getting torn off the ship during this scene. But if you have the Halo 4 concept art book, you actually see that the designers at 343 heavily thought about what the escape pods would look like and how they would function. Possibly indicating that the Chief was supposed to get off the ship via an escape pod and not sort of do an orbital fall. Moving on to the level Requiem now, obviously. You can sort of see from the cutscene the Dawn has been completely torn apart by the gravity well. In Halo 3, we see the Master Chief surviving the jump from the Forerunner key ship by locking his armor down. During this scene in Halo 4, we don't see him sort of his armor locked down or in that same way. That's not to say it didn't happen, but it could be inferred that it did happen, and that's probably the only way that Chief really would have survived. The only difference there is that Cortana is with the Chief this time, and she could have deactivated the hydrostatic gel layer.
Something was wrong.
Lowered the pressure.
Left the Dawn.
Chief, really, I'm fine.
Cortana.
You'll notice that many of Cortana's rampancy fits actually involve her sort of speaking from a different person's point of view. If you never caught onto that, it's Dr. Halsey, which obviously makes sense considering
Halsey.
her origins.
We need to find Halsey.
Chief, please.
She made you. She can fix you.
I won't recover from rampancy, Chief.
If we can just get back to Earth and find Halsey, she can fix this.
Don't make a girl a promise you can't keep. We need to move. Doesn't look like the Covenant fared much better than we did.
How many ships made it through the roof?
Plenty.
Alright, so I'll scavenge for some weapons.
We still need a ride home.
A friend of mine told me that there was a railgun on this level. You can only get it on Legendary. I've looked for it, and he tried to show me where he found it, or supposedly found it, but I've never been able to get it. Which leads me to assume it was just a accidental memory. We could also talk about the initial design of the level Dawn. The sequence that of events that happened were pretty much the same, but they happened in a different order and for different reasons in the original design for Halo 4. Once Chief made it to the observation deck, that's when he would have been scanned by Requiem, and then the planet would have opened and started sucking in Forerunner ships, or excuse me, Covenant ships.
What is that?
And the Covenant, wanting to survive,
the Covenant have been broadcasting that
Hold on one
from
second.
a distant orbit every 30 minutes for the last 3 years.
They've been waiting outside the planet for 3 years.
Apparently, they couldn't get in.
anyway, so
And
then the Covenant, though, after their fleet getting sucked into Requiem, would launch dropships to board the Fort onto Dawn to access its escape pods to survive the landfall to Requiem. Way tests indicated that that was too confusing for the player to catch all at once, so they changed the order of events and the reasons for why it was happening. These pillars are obviously extremely iconic to Requiem. They're sort of comparable to the beam towers from Halo 1 and Halo 2. Sort of their mysterious but all-present nature.
To see your luck is holding out.
Beam towers still have somewhat of an ambiguous function. From the level shutdown, we know some of the purposes of these towers, and that there's different types of towers for specific purposes. But these basic towers, I recall reading or hearing somewhere that they were they were basically anti-gravity support columns to keep the layers of Requiem aligned together and stable.
Chief, I'm hearing that strange signal again. Stronger this time.
Do you think there's something to it?
Requiem has some really exotic land masses, which we never really unfortunately see in the game, at least in a, you know, way that the developers wanted us to, you know, obviously see these land masses. You can actually look at their concept art and see the exotic nature of Requiem's land masses. Really, the easiest way to see it in the game is at this section of the level. You'd sort of think that, you know, after making a crash landing, you know, we're sort of on a relatively sea level, I guess, or comparatively sea level location on Requiem. It turns out we're actually extremely high up in terms of altitude, which would actually help explain how the Master Chief survived the fall to Requiem. I'll go off on a little bit of a tangent. Sorry, I'll go off on a little bit of a tangent before I go back talking about the land masses. This armor obviously looks very similar to the officer armor in Halo Reach. I can't help but wonder if they have similar roles, the commander and officer. One is more higher ranked than the other, or what else? Another what was sort of jarring and how it changed a lot of the design of many things, weapons, and aliens. Many people didn't care much for how the Jackals and Grunts changed. However, it was not however, but it's the elites that most people cared about, because it's the elites that get the majority of the attention when we're talking about a Covenant species. The different facial designs, no one facial design in the Halo games is the, you know, penultimate, not really penultimate, but you know, it's like it's not the final decision of what the elites look like. Now all the facial designs, the facial types of the elites from all the games, they're all canonical. And any combinations of and anything in between the designs as well are canonical. For game design purposes, they can't represent this adequately in Halo.